Welcome to Embracing Life Again. I'm Karin Sommer, transition expert and minister. Together, we'll break through life's toughest barriers, rediscover joy, and start dreaming again. It's time to embrace life fully with purpose, passion, and hope. Welcome to Embracing Life Again. I'm your host, Karin Sommer, and we bring inspiration through life's transitions. The purpose of my show is to inspire women to find more balance, to feel a sense of freedom, to choose joy, and to dream again as we collectively stand in our power. Getting you unstuck in your trauma or loss to experience joy and dream again. And don't forget, we have adventures with Zebby and Theo, the last 10 minutes of the show. And I have a special guest, I'm bringing her back, and it's Barbara Karin Sommer. You've seen her before, and we are gonna be talking about how to be certain in the midst of uncertainty. So let me bring her on. Hey Barbara, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so those of you who do not know who she is, I'm going to reintroduce her. So this is Barbara Karin Sommer, and she's a PhD intern at Clinic AD in Reno. She has been studying mind-body medicine since 1995 and has a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
In addition
to all that. So we are going to talk about uncertainty uncertainty, because there's so much out there, and how can we be certain or feel or act certain when there's all this chaos going on. So she already knows, but the interesting thing is, so we're going to talk about decision making, mindset, being adaptable, maybe emotional resilience, and long-term planning, because there's so much going on in the world. And then I should say I Googled it. Actually, I chat GPT'd it. Okay, what are people afraid of right now in the world today and in their lives, and especially if we're going through trauma and loss? And one of them is fear of failure. The other one is fear of the unknown. And I know I can catch myself in that a lot. I just really have to rethink things. Fear of rejection or judgment, fear of change. And I think when we are going through when we are going through trauma and loss and trying to better ourselves, the fear of change is huge. We instinctively don't like change, right?
It's true. I don't think any of us like change, even when it's positive.
Right. And so we need to embrace it, right? Well, somehow. If someone is, well, you can start. You can start on what your thoughts are. I'm uncertain right now, and I need certainty in my life right now, right? What advice do you have, or how can we get this conversation started so we can help our viewers?
You know, I think that if we begin to change our relationship to uncertainty, I think it can be very helpful to maybe look at certainty in a little bit of a different way, to understand that uncertainty can actually be beneficial to us. It can help us grow. It can help us promote us forward, to challenge ourselves. It can help build trust in God, for instance.
True.
So I think that having a different mindset around uncertainty can be helpful.
Okay.
Right? We can also build resilience from having uncertainty. And all of us have fear.
I know. Well,
fear is an inherent component of uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
You know, we are uncertain whether we'll be good enough, lovable enough, successful enough, any kind of enough.
Our worth is, huge.
And those are
that.
self-limiting beliefs.
Correct.
And so we all need to challenge ourselves to prove to ourselves that we are good enough, that we are capable enough. While we also rely on God to help show us what our inherent talents are that we are born with, that are God-given.
True.
We can develop more skills. Those skills help override that fear and that uncertainty, as well as those self-limiting beliefs. And so every time that we step up to the plate, so to speak, as if in baseball, but in life, the game of life, we prove to ourselves that we can do it, that we build confidence, and then that offsets the uncertainty. Because really, fear is just false expectations appearing real.
I've heard it false, not expectations, but false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too.
Both are really good there. So can you give me an example? Because if I'm fearful of, like, I've just lost my husband and I'm fearful of the unknown. I'm fearful, okay, now what? I don't know I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think. Right? What's an example for how I can change my mindset? Because first, we have to grieve.
Absolutely.
We have to, get our, do I say thoughts underneath us? No, we have to get, we have to, start being grounded.
Right.
First, before we can even tackle uncertainty, right? Because just the grief alone is enough to just put you out for a little bit, or I should say paralyze you for a little bit, right? And then as you're starting in life, that's when your uncertainty, I think, comes, right?
Right, especially with grief. First there's the denial that something happened that we didn't want to happen, that we lost a loved one, that there was a car accident, that someone got ill, different tragedies that happen. So there's a period of, did this really happen? I'm in denial. This couldn't have happened, right? And then you start feeling anger.
Right.
And then you start feeling the sadness and the depression. And you can ping pong back and forth between all of these emotions until you finally come to acceptance. And, like in acceptance commitment therapy, it's a part of cognitive behavioral therapy, an offshoot. And what we think about things, so going back to CBT, let me explain that first. In cognitive behavioral therapy, we talk about what we think and how we're thinking about something then generates our emotional response, which then influences our behaviors and then feedback loops into our mindset and how we're thinking about something. And so we have a bunch of different unhealthy thinking patterns, like catastrophizing, thinking the worst that could happen, thinking only black and white. So I think that we fall into some of those often with uncertainty because, if you get in the car, you're always taking a certain risk.
That's true, but you can't think that way.
But you can't think that way. If every time you got in the car to go to work or go somewhere, if you thought, oh, I could get in a car accident, that wouldn't be helpful, right?
No, that becomes more of a phobia.
Exactly. Right. And then people can develop even agoraphobia, afraid to go out at all, afraid to travel on airplanes, afraid to go shopping.
That's so sad.
And, especially with some events that have happened recently, like to even go to the New Year's celebration, people can be afraid. And, but we let the terrorists win when we shut down.
So true.
So we need to be sensible. I think that logic can help offset some of the fear of the uncertainty.
Okay. So how do you do that?
So when we're under stress, when we have fear, our frontal lobes start shutting down.
Interesting.
And so then the amygdala in the center of the brain lights up.
And that's a nasty little thing of when we were, primitive, right? That somehow God put in there for us to be able to see danger and flee, right? But now we still have it, and we don't have those dangers anymore, so it still acts up, and it's a pain in the butt. But you can't live without your amygdala.
Right.
Right.
So I think part of the mindset that we need to have is that everything is working for our highest good, even if we don't understand what that is yet, and even through adversity and hardship and tragedy, that somehow, some way, there's something that we can learn, how we can grow, how we can transform. Look at people who have lost loved ones, who then establish a foundation to help other children who have been lost, for instance, or, a foundation to help others who had that illness.
So true. Yeah.
And so we make good from the tragedy.
Well, a lot of us do.
Well, we have the opportunity
Some
to. We have the opportunity to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that if we can harness some of that fear, so our nervous system tells us impulses to keep us safe. And so really that fear is working for us instead of against us. Because if I have a little bit of nervousness and I pay attention to that, and then I, am a little bit more careful before I'm about to do something, then that fear helped me because I became more watchful, more vigilant, but not taken to the extreme where it's then paralyzing and shuts you down.
Okay. Yeah, so you can use fear as a check.
Yeah.
Like a check in your spirit to go, okay.
Yes.
Why am I feeling this way? Right? I mean, what do you suggest
Like
we
a
say
gut
to
response.
ourselves? We have a gut going, okay, I'm not sure why I'm feeling this way. And so what questions can you ask yourself so you know to move forward with the fear or?
I think that if we first notice the fear,
That's a big one.
notice the uncertainty and sit with it just for a moment.
Okay.
Notice the sensations in the body. Notice that little, butterfly in the stomach. Notice, maybe the slight headache or the tension in the neck and shoulders.
Okay.
And then harness what information that you're getting from the mind and body that then may be able to be helpful to then tell us, oh, I need to be careful of such and such.
Yeah.
While not letting it override logic, still using logic. So I'm going to give an example.
Yeah.
Today I was dropping off my 3 foster children to school. And so I pulled over right in front of the crosswalk and, I let them out of the car, and then other cars were starting to go by. They were on the crosswalk or on the sidewalk, and then they were starting to walk across the crosswalk. So you could tell that there was a hesitancy, even though they've done this 100 times, and the cars have now stopped and they're all waiting.
Okay.
But they walked as slow as they could across the street with all the cars waiting. And while, the first bell had rung and they only had a few minutes before the second bell. So they walked as slow as they could while possibly running late with cars waiting because they were uncertain, right?
Okay.
And that's a human instinct.
Okay.
That's a natural instinct that we have to be too careful. Right? But we don't want it to override the logic, right? And so as we grow, as children grow up, we develop more mental capacity in our executive functioning of the frontal lobe. And then we use that as a check. So while we'll still look to make sure that the cars have stopped, we'll probably walk across the crosswalk a little bit faster, right? Not like la la la, right? Especially a busy road. Because we're using our sense of reason and logic, while we still have caution. Does that make sense? So that we're working both together.
Okay.
And then that's how we can utilize fear, utilize the uncertainty for us. to be more watchful, to be a little more
Yeah.
careful, to be prudent, to protect ourselves.
Makes sense. So,
But without it becoming something extreme where we then are afraid to get in the car or afraid to go shopping or...
right. So if you get this, like, I'll call it a check, a fear check. No more knee-jerk reaction. You should check in, or just like
maybe
take
pause.
a minute, pause,
Yeah.
and then figure it out instead of doing a knee-jerk reaction, which you're used to. That was me all the time, way back when. I don't do it anymore because I'm learning to stop and listen, and you know, and then if it's something, I'm like, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me, right? He may not want you to go somewhere. Right? You just don't know why you're getting that check. So it's really important to stop and listen.
Yes. Check in.
Check in with yourself.
Yes.
Check in with God, right?
Yes.
He's always talking to you. Our ears aren't always open, right? And that's what I've learned. So easy to turn those ears off and not listen to your spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem with impulsiveness, because we don't stop to think, we don't stop to check in with our intuition, with our gut response, with our inner intelligence,
Yeah.
with our logic, or any messaging from God or spiritually, right? And then we proceed recklessly with impulsivity. And so instead of that, by pausing, finding that moment of stillness, checking in with the mind and body and spirit, then we proceed with caution, but with challenging our fear just a little bit.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pink has a song. It's called Trust Fall. And she talks in there's always something, right? And you're scared. You're so scared, but you just do it.
Right. Well, courage.
You just do it. And then your fear's gone, right?
Right.
I mean,
well,
'cause that's what
courage
it
is
Yeah.
not the absence of fear. Courage is having a fear or being afraid and
go
doing it
through it.
anyway. But, not recklessly,
Right.
with reasonability, with rationality.
So I have a question. I've noticed people's behavior since COVID is not like it was. And I know COVID changed a lot of things, but I also think it changed us as, right? I see people acting more and more stupid. I hate to say the word stupid, so I'll say the word silly, right? I'm like, it's like they're not even thinking, right, about consequences. They're not even thinking about how they're coming off or anything. They don't care. It's like, they don't care, and they don't care how they treat people. They don't. And it's like, do you have any idea why that could have changed?
In a way, we became desocialized.
Ah, okay.
And so we lost our manners.
No kidding. No kidding. And patience.
And patience, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I would hate to be a customer service rep right now.
Yeah.
I hear people over the phone. I'm like, oh my goodness. I know. Right?
Well, at first it seemed like people in the pandemic became more compassionate, more sensitive, more considerate.
But,
and then it went kind of the opposite.
yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
hasn't
we haven't
changed.
fully recovered yet.
No. And it's like the people don't have, what word am I thinking about? Common sense.
Yeah.
Where the heck did common sense go?
And common decency and respect for others.
Right? Where is that? I don't know.
Yeah, we did lose
But how can common
a
sense go
microchip
away?
there.
We lost a few brain cells. A lot of brain cells, that's for sure.
We have to redevelop that. Luckily, neuro pathways reestablished by practice and repetition.
Yeah.
And that's how we build confidence, right?
Okay.
Because that was another question that we had around uncertainty. How can you be confident while there's so much uncertainty?
Right. So true.
Well, by challenging ourselves in a reasonable way to make goals and form action steps that we actually follow through on.
Okay.
And then with repetition, we build more consistency, which then builds more confidence.
True. Now, would you say, okay, so you remember the, I can't remember the movie's name, but he wrote a book about baby steps. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Where everything was a baby step, just one little thing at a time. And one of my business coaches is like, improve one more thing every day.
One little step at a time.
So it is one little baby step at a time. But keep building on the improvement that you're, trying to do, right? So if you have a goal to do something, just do a little more every day. I mean, is that something that...
Yeah, because it seems overwhelming when it's uncertain.
When you look at the big picture.
Yes, it's very overwhelming. So what we need to do is break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces that we can then take just one step at a time.
Right.
And then we do get there. How do we walk, a mile, just one step at a time? How do we eat an elephant? That old saying, one bite at a time. How do we climb the mountain? One step at a time.
Yeah. So true.
And really, uncertainty feels like a mountain. To climb sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that if we orient ourselves around things that are positive, while considering what we're afraid of and what is uncertain, we can still form a plan around our personal and professional goals. We can focus on our personal development or have a growth mindset. We can focus on our family and our friends and not on world events.
I don't even watch the
while
news.
we think of world events at times, but we don't obsessively think over all of that.
If you're listening to the news, turn it off, because that will just keep you in that loop, right? Because all they do is drama, and you're thinking it's unsafe to go outside. Well, it's not true. It's not true.
Well, I budget the news. I watch the world news for a half an hour a night, and I watch the local news for a half an hour a night. But, so I'll pay attention. I'll, feel sympathy and empathy.
So we know what's going on, but you're not immersed in it.
Right.
My mom used to have news on 24 hours a day. I'm like, no wonder you're so negative.
No wonder you're depressed.
No wonder you're depressed.
The world's falling apart.
Right. Just like, it's like you would tell your client, your patient, start looking for uplifting people. Quit.
Surround yourself with more inspiring, positive people.
Right. So you would say that with your environment too, right? Start listening to uplifting music.
Yes.
Right? Start, you can even start saying affirmations of what you want.
Focus on what you want instead of avoiding what you don't want. Because wherever you put your intention and attention is what you're going to create and manifest more of.
So true. So true. Yeah.
So that's a big mindset shift.
Right. And you may not see it instantly, right? But you just keep building, like we're talking about. You just keep building, and all of a sudden you'll look back and wow. Especially if you journal.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Journaling is a good way to get your emotions and your thoughts out and help process through them.
Right.
And then you can look back and go, oh, that's where I was a year ago. That's where I was 10
really
years
grown
ago.
on this, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever situation you're trying to get certain in, right? So you just know that, oh, wow, I've come a long way. I wish I journaled more. I hate journaling, sorry. I've already said that before.
I used to be a really big journaler when I was younger, and I used to write poetry.
Oh, nice.
Also.
Nice.
But I haven't done it in a little while. I'd like to get back into it.
Yeah. Especially if you write down prayers that have been answered.
Yeah.
That's huge, because if you look back, you're like, okay.
God
has been there. I may not have seen him in the moment, but God's been there for me. And right? And also, you were talking about, you may not see why something happened, right?
Yeah.
But if you journaled it, and then then like 5 years later, and then you look back, you're like, I see. I see why. I mean, Yeah. So
Yeah.
what did you learn from
I think that there was a
right?
famous philosopher that said, if we know the why, then it's easy to do the how. So if we know the purpose in why we're doing something, we can find how to do it. I think it was Nietzsche who said that.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard, don't worry about the how, because it will come. Right? That's what I've heard. And right? Because we don't know how God's going to do it. We don't know how he's going to change us to be who he's made us to be. Right? We all have a purpose. And our purposes are all different. And if we walk in our purpose, if we know what it is, and if you don't know what it is, you just keep asking. Show me, right?
You know, I was listening to The Message. It's similar to K-Love.
Okay.
It's a Christian radio station. And the DJ was sharing a story about when she was a missionary many years ago. And it was a time in her life where she was in a certain country where they weren't sure where they were going to sleep, what food, you know, how they were going to get money. But she had to trust in God, and God kept showing up for her and providing, right?
Okay.
And so she was on the phone with her father one day, and she said, this is so stressful. I don't, want to have all this uncertainty. And her father said something so beautiful to her that she shared. He said to her, well, why would you want to stop having a time in your life where you have to trust in God and he shows up for you consistently?
Yeah.
And I thought that was so beautiful.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to do.
Absolutely. We do need to do that. So, wrapping up a little bit, what 3 takeaways can you summarize to help my audience?
Well, when we have uncertainty, it often evolves around a problem. And there are problem-solving techniques that can be used. So you define the problem, then you think of or brainstorm various possible solutions. Just brain dump, anything that's possible about how you can handle or problem solve what the possible solutions are. Then choose one of them.
Okay.
Make it an experiment. Try it out for a week or 2, a month. Then check back in. Okay, well, how well is that solution working? Okay, well, maybe this got us from A to B. Maybe it got us 30% there. How about we try solution number 2?
Okay.
And so then see, maybe that gets you to 60%.
Yeah.
And then, or maybe you stumble upon something that works 100% right from the get-go, or maybe you need a combination of solutions that will piecemeal it together.
Okay.
But eventually, you'll get most of the way there, I think.
Okay.
And so then that starts lowering the uncertainty, lowering the fear, lowering the feeling of inadequacies. Yep. And then we prove to ourselves that it's all going to be okay. But it also, if we think and believe that it's all going to be okay, it probably will be.
It's true.
And what is a belief? It's something that we tell ourselves over and over.
Yeah.
So if we're telling ourselves negative things, we have negative beliefs.
True.
And then we perpetuate that. That's what we expect, and that's the setup we're creating. But if that's the case, you can stop doing that and you can reframe it into positive beliefs.
If you have a belief from when you're little, because of things that have happened to you, right? And then we all put our own spiel on it, right? And it ends up not being true, right? But we do things and we put meaning to things.
Yes.
We put our own meaning to things, and that becomes our belief.
Right.
Our belief about that thing, or
Yes.
the belief about who we are, or, right? So I did that as a kid.
We all do this.
I mean, I did, and
Do you remember Est or landmark from many decades ago.
I did
They had a
landmark.
whole
I did landmark.
they had a whole training around this. There's what happened,
Yep.
and then there's what we made it mean. And so if we don't like the interpretations that we've created from what happened, and then that's causing us problems, then we can create new meanings and interpretations that will be more supportive and helpful
That takes
to our well-being.
a lot of work.
It does. And that's
it's
what therapy is for.
To me, it's easier said than done. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times you need a professional to work through that.
Yeah. And that's what we do. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy is about. That's what acceptance commitment therapy is about, dialectical behavioral therapy, as well
Right.
as many other modalities of therapy.
Right.
And, going back into childhood, you can look at Jungian archetypes, you can look at psychodynamic theories, you can do internal family systems theories for trauma. There's a lot of different approaches.
Yeah. So depending on
to
what your
therapy.
situation is, you coordinate that with the person.
Yes.
So it's not one size fits all.
Right.
Because we're all different.
Yeah.
We all have our different habits, hang-ups, and hurts.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We often function from our hurts and our wounds, right? And that's why someone asked me, they're like, how are you? Why don't you want, like, if someone treats me badly, right? I try and think of it like, you know what? They know not what they do. They're not meaning hurt people hurt people.
Hurting people hurt other people.
And so I look at it like that. And so, like, and one of my for instances is, you're in the grocery store. The person helping you at the register, right? They're very curt. They're very, like, pissy. It's the best word to put it. Actually, I could call it something else, but I won't. And I'll just look at them with empathy and go, I'm so sorry you're having a really bad day. And they stop because they don't realize what they're doing. They don't realize how they're acting and how it's affecting other people. And then they'll tell you, well, if there's not a long line,
Yeah.
they'll tell you, oh,
It's just
such and such happened to me today. And that's the whole thing. We can't assume we know what happened to that person, why they're acting that way, right? So I try and show them love first, but if they're still going to be, I'm like, well, I hope your day gets better, and I leave, right? I'm not going to subject myself to being abused in the line or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do try and empathize or understand. And then, and if someone asked me, how do you do that? And I said, because people don't know what they do. They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
And it's also a buildup. We have these stressors that build up to threshold.
Absolutely.
Like, say this is the threshold. All day long, we can have these little stressors, and then the next thing that happens, boom. But if we remember our coping skills, our deep breaths, our box breathing, you inhale through the nose, count to 4, hold the breath in, count to 4, exhale through the mouth, counting to 4, and then hold the breath out, counting to 4.
Yeah.
It's called a box breath because it's 4, 4,
Right,
4,
right,
and 4. So you can think of it, inhale, smell the hot chocolate, exhale, cool off the hot chocolate. I like that for kids, but it works for adults. You just say a mocha.
That's really good. That's really
But
good.
it starts calming down the nervous system.
Okay.
And so if we remember to pause, take a few deep breaths, then it turns back on the frontal lobe. Then we can think about what we're doing or saying.
Or why
we
you're
can
frustrated.
Also that we're frustrated, then we don't take it out on the innocent person next in line, who has no knowledge of what
just
they
happened.
what they were dealing with before.
Right. And then as we get more aware, I let it go. I don't want it to fester.
Yes.
And
We need to let it go.
And, the Bible says, cast your cares on me, for I care for you, 1 Peter 5:6. And so at night, we're supposed to let everything go. So we have a new day. tomorrow. We start fresh tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
There is a technique that I can teach the audience. This comes from a metaphysical background, and so it uses metaphor. It's based in energy work, and it comes from probably the Berkeley Psychic Institute, and then I studied with the Order of the Ascended Rose in San Diego way back when. So you can imagine yourself in a bubble. You know, we even teach the kids this in school, but for a different reason. But you imagine yourself in a bubble like this, and then you imagine each other person in their own bubble, right? Then while you're sitting or laying down at night, you can use this as a practice. You send anyone else's energy away out of your personal space into their own bubble. You just send all their energy back to them, anything that happened with anybody. And then you call your life force energy back in the form of a golden sun above your head, and then allow that to fill you from head to toe.
Yeah.
And it's rejuvenating. And it's solidifying. It's almost like we get these little micro tears in our aura.
Oh, yeah.
But we're calling our own life force energy back to us. And then we can use a grounding cord, imagining a grounding cord coming from the tailbone down to the center of the earth to discharge any negative things, emotionally, energetically, psychologically.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're connecting also with the universe. And I can teach that later, but it's called running energy. And you imagine, you know, celestial energy coming down into your head and going down your back, and earth energy coming up through your feet, and then mixing underneath the tailbone, and then coming up like a fountain around you and nourishing you.
Interesting.
Cleansing you.
I do that, and when I do that, I imagine God's light, love, and peace.
Yes.
Totally cleansing my body, right?
Yes,
So
that's very powerful.
Right. It doesn't just have to be
helpful.
out there. So
yeah, and then that changes your focus and your mindset. It changes your emotional state. And then it helps you feel better physically.
Yeah. And even been taught to help you heal.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Putting God's light on whatever it is to help you heal. So how can the audience find out more about you? Where can they find you?
So I work at Clinic AD under Dr. Stephen Mayville and Dr. Ruth Gentry. So you can look up Clinic AD. You know, also my email.
Okay.
So it's Barbara Karin, BARBARAKARIN, the number 17 @outlook.com.
Perfect.
So I look forward to hearing from you.
Yes.
Ask me any questions you want. I'll be Dr. Barbara. Dr. Barbara Karin instead of Dr. Ruth.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget, Adventures of Zebby and Theo are next. Bye for now.
Coming up next, Adventures with Theo and Zebby, right here on Embracing Life Again with Karin Sommer.
So no, you don't. You are such a silly.
So I'm surprising Zebby. It just rained and he's eating. So there he is. Hey Zeb, you gonna come here? Anyway, he has his blanket on because it's under 50 degrees and I have to keep his coat a certain way. And so usually he neighs at me, but he's like, I'm eating, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. So today is training day. We're going to be training. So every week I bring his trainer out and we work on different things for him. Today we're probably going to be doing carting, right? So I'm trying to teach him to cart. So he'll be in a harness and he's learning to move in rain. We don't have the cart on him yet, but so I will show you the training involved in that. See you soon. Okay, so it looks like Zebby is getting hooked up and we're gonna practice long reining him today. See different pressures, see what he likes better than others for the training. So we're gonna lunge Zebby to get him warmed up before we put the surcingle on him. And I'm trying to be still so you guys can really see what's happening, and that's my trainer Amanda. So we train every Thursday if we can, if I'm not traveling. So he's so well trained, let me tell you. But I've spent hours and hours and hours on this little dude. So I just wanted you to show you what lunging looks like, and all it is getting him warmed up in a circle, and then she'll turn him around to go the other way, and then I'll put the reins on him and we'll show you what long reining looks like, getting him ready to pull a cart. Amanda, what are you doing with him right now?
So this is long reining, and I'm able to teach him how to be sensitive to reins. Obviously we can't ride him, so this is the next best thing. Trying to keep him nice and straight without any arguments. And I'm in a position where he can see me, so he's more relaxed instead of being behind him like I would in a cart.
So she just got him to change direction, and he did it perfectly. So you're still on his side, right?
Yep.
Okay.
He can see me clearly on that side.
And then eventually you'll be right behind him and then he'll steer that way?
Yep.
Okay.
Good boy.
So she's moving him again, making him go straight. So like I said before, this is getting him ready to cart. He has never pulled a cart yet. But we want him just really comfortable and knowing what we want him to do before he starts pulling anything, because we don't want him hurting himself or anybody else. He's just such a calm kid. I love this kid. He's just such a good boy. You've taken the first step to embracing life again. Let's continue to break barriers, find joy, and dream without limits. Join us next time and let's discover inspiration through every transition together.